Dre all day.
Mic test 1 2 1 2. You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve as a result of your efforts has yet to come to fruition. And on top of all this, we're not done. You're going to get the personal initiative. This is the go-getter energy that moves me, you, and any other human being out there to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one package. What you get is a mindset, a method, a philosophy. There's a book, and there's also this show, this masterclass you are tuned into that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome yourself to where you are right now. And today's topic is a question. The question is, do you respect yourself? That's the question. Now, you may think that the answer is very simple. You may think that the question is nonsensical. You may think that the answer to this question is very, quote, common sense, close quote. But as we get into what we're going to be talking about here today on this class, this is not the usual material that you consume anywhere else online. As we get into the material we're going to get into today, you'll understand why this question is a question, and you're going to be asking yourself this question seriously, and you're going to need to take some time to ponder what the answer to this question is for you in particular, not for anybody else, but for you personally. I was thinking about what led to this topic is I was thinking about urgency and why it is so hard for anyone, you, me, anybody out there, why it's so hard, some harder for others, to have urgency, to have that kick in, that sense of urgency to get things done when there's no pressure forcing us to get a certain thing done by a certain time at least. And even when we are able or capable of drumming up some urgency within ourselves, whether it's a situation that's forcing an urgency or we just decide to have some urgency with ourselves, those little bursts of energy that we get every now and then. Again, some get it more often than others. Why is it so hard for us to maintain a sense of urgency even when we are able to get it? And moreover, why is it so very rare that we're able to just create urgency for just because? Why is it so hard for any of us to just decide I'm going to be urgent about this situation and just do it, even though there is no rush to do things now. There's no rush to get it done this way. It doesn't have to be done right this minute. Why is it that it's so hard for us to create urgency within ourselves and our lives? And I boiled it all down as I was thinking about this to myself. I boiled it all down to one core reason. The core reason is we do not respect ourselves enough to be urgent. And that's why the question of today's topic is the question. There's levels to this shit, as you may have heard. So what I'm going to do today, we're going to break it down, starting at the surface level of why we have a problem with respecting ourselves. And then we're going to go levels deeper so that you understand exactly the core root of this. So we're going to start at the surface, then we're going to go to the deep core of it, and then you're going to understand exactly what you need to do by the time you get done listening to what you're going to be hearing today. So the topic is, again, do you respect yourself is the question. Now, you may respect yourself enough to carry yourself a certain way in public and not allow other people to treat you a certain way or have a certain standard of conduct for yourself, and you want to make sure that you have the right food, clothing, shelter, etc. Those things, yes, you respect yourself enough for those things. But I'm talking about respecting yourself when it comes to, well, let's just get into it and you'll understand exactly what I mean. Point number one, the topic once again is a question. Do you respect yourself? Number one, urgency is easy when urgent things are taking place. Can you agree? If you ever been in an urgent situation, which I'm sure you have, you didn't have to think about, hey, I better develop a sense of urgency right now so I can get these things done. You didn't have to think about it because the situation itself provided the urgency for you. Think about energy. A sense of urgency is energy, right? Think about energy is that it's neither created nor destroyed. It's merely passed from one object to another. So when an urgent situation occurs, the energy of the situation provides you all the energy that you need. You don't have to remind yourself to be urgent because the situation itself is forcing urgency on you and anyone else who's involved in it. So it's easy to be urgent when urgent things are taking place. You don't have a choice but to be urgent. If you see a situation as urgent, you're going to be urgent. All right, that's just how it works. There's pressure on you. Something has to get done. Your hand is forced. Time is short. things usually happen under those circumstances. If you think about the last time you were in an urgent situation, usually something occurred. You got something done. Something that hadn't been getting done after all that time finally got done because you were in an urgent situation. So honestly, we don't really need to talk too much about urgent situations forcing themselves upon us, because when an urgent situation happens, you won't need to open up YouTube or listen to any audio or fire up the certain module in an online course that you took or remember which chapter it was in that book that you read in order to get urgency. It'll already be there for you. The situation itself provides it. The question is, though, how can we have that same urgency when there is no emergency? Ask that question again because it rhymes. How can you have that same urgency when there is no emergency? Urgency without emergency. And I was not planning for that to rhyme, but that's just the way I wrote it out. And now that I'm saying it, it is perfect. I might brand that right there. Urgency without emergency. So what's the answer to this question? On the next 3 points, I'm going to tell you what the answer is. So let's move right on to point number 2. Now that we got clear on number 1, that urgency is easy when urgent things are happening, what about every other time in life where nothing urgent is happening? And actually, let me tell you a little bit more on point number 1 here. When we are in an urgent situation, what do we usually do? We move a lot faster. We think a lot faster. We make decisions a lot quicker. We get things done with much more efficiency. We move with a certain type of energy that moves people and circumstances out of our way because we are so focused on whatever it is we have to get done. That sense of urgency lends energy to every area of our beings, to the way that we walk, the way we talk, the energy we're conducting ourselves with, our focus. Everything, and other people notice that energy in us. They either follow our lead or get the hell out of our way. Those are only 2 choices that they have. We don't have obstacles when there's urgency. I'll say that again. There are no obstacles when there is urgency. Because when you're looking at a situation as urgent, something that absolutely has to get done, you know what? Obstacles don't matter anymore. And when an obstacle doesn't matter, then it ceases to become an obstacle. See, an obstacle only exists if you see it as an obstacle. Can you agree that there are certain things in your life right now that you're saying to yourself, I can't do X, Y, Z because obstacle A, B, and C are in my way? Can you agree that there are some of those things existing in your life right now? But can you also agree there are other people who are looking to do X, Y, Z, the same thing you're looking to do, but they don't see obstacles. They don't see A, B, and C as obstacles because they just choose not to for whatever reason. Maybe they have some skills you don't. Maybe they see things in a way that you don't see them. Maybe they have some resources that you don't have. But we can all agree that an obstacle is relative. Obstacles are relative. Somebody who can't dunk a basketball might say, well, the height of the rim being 10 feet high, that's an obstacle for me dunking the ball. But another person who can dunk says, well, that's not an obstacle because I can do it. So obstacles are really just based on the way that we decide to look at things. Obstacle is not actually a real thing. I mean, the thing itself is real, but it being an obstacle is a choice. That's a decision that you're making. So the thing about having a sense of urgency is the obstacles no longer get in our way. We move a whole lot faster. We have a whole lot more energy. Our focus and attention is a lot more sharp. And we almost always achieve our outcomes when we have a sense of urgency. So therefore, knowing this, and if you think again of times when you've had a sense of urgency, whether it's been forced upon you or you had it for yourself, you can agree that a whole lot of things get done very efficiently when urgency exists. So the question is, how can you have urgency even when there's no emergency situation forced itself upon you? Now, we move on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is do you respect yourself? That's the question. And we haven't even gotten to that part yet. That's what makes this so amazing, what you're getting here on Work on Your Game. Point number 2. You got to stop letting yourself off the hook. This is the key. This is the crux of the whole conversation that we're having here today. You have to stop letting yourself off the hook when you didn't do what you were supposed to do, or what you told yourself you were going to do, or what you thought about doing, or what you think you could do when you get the opportunity, when you have the time, whatever excuse you want to give for not getting it done. You got to stop letting yourself off the hook. And I'm explaining to you why. Let's say that you had a pending court case, or you were in the middle of a legal situation and you had to stand in front of a judge in a courthouse. And the judge said, listen, miss or sir, you know that project that you've been talking about getting done for the last 2 years? That business that you were talking about starting, that website that you were going to put up, that product that you were going to release, that book that you were going to finish writing. You know that project you've been talking about for the last 2, 3, 10 years and you haven't done it yet? All right, well, guess what? Today, the judge is saying to you, I am sentencing you to a year imprisonment. There is no appeal. You cannot appeal this sentence. Or If your supervisor at work, and I'm gonna tell you what else the judge is gonna say. All right, I'll get to that in a second. Just hold that thought. Or if your supervisor at work threatened your employment and said, listen, that project you've been talking about doing outside of work, that business you were talking about starting, that job you were going to apply for, that book you were going to finish writing, that product you were going to release, if you don't get it done in the next 3 weeks, you're fired from this job that you've been working at for the last 20 years. Or if the coach that you hired, your life coach or your business coach or your whatever coach you want to call them, that person said, listen, you need to get this done. You hired me to help you get things done. Now I'm telling you, you need to get this done. We're not having any other conversations till this thing is done. What would happen in those situations? The judge said, I sent you a year in jail unless you get that book finished in the next 3 weeks, unless you release that product tomorrow, unless you write that email, unless you make those phone calls you've been talking about making. If the judge said you go to jail unless you get those things done, would you get it done? Probably. If your boss said I'm firing you unless that's done, would you get it done? Yes. If the coach that you hired says, okay, you hired me to help you get things done, right? You say, yeah. They say, okay, then get this done, and we're not talking again until it's done. Would you get it done? Yes, you would. If someone else in a position of authority, whatever you consider to be authority relative to you, told you to get something done, you would probably get it done. For no other reason. Here's the only reason why you would get it done. If a judge or a boss or a parent or somebody you respect or a coach or anyone you have who's in a position of authority relative to you told you to get something done, you would get it done for no other reason than what? Because you respect the word of that person who told you to do it. That's it. That's the only reason. I mean, you might not even know the judge. You don't know them personally, right? You never broke bread with this individual, but because you respect their word, you respect the fact that they said, if you don't get this done, you're going to jail. You believe them. All right. You believe that they're telling you the truth. You believe that when your boss says that that's not done in 3 weeks, you're fired. You believe that you would actually get fired, and you hired your coach because you want the coach to put a foot in your ass and tell you to get things done. So when they give you the word that this needs to get done, you go get it done. Why? Why do you respect the words of these people? Because you just do. You just choose to respect their word. We all have certain people in our lives or people who are in certain positions in our lives that when we come across them and they tell us to do something, usually we do it. Why? Because the level of respect that we have for them or the relationship that we have with them or whatever it is we see in that person causes us to respect whatever it is that they're saying. That's why you will listen when certain people tell you to do things. Now, who are those people in your life? If you think about it, who are the people in your life who have such a position that they just said to you, you need to get this done? It's not something, I'm not saying they got to come with something completely out of left field that you never even thought about doing. Something that you know you need to do, something that you've been talking about doing for yourself, but you just haven't been able to move yourself to action. You haven't been able to move yourself to take the initiative to get the thing done. But when they tell you to get it done or they threaten you in some way, you go ahead and get it done. Just because you respect them enough. Who are those people? You may have a whole lot of those people in your life. You may only have one or two. Maybe you can't even think of any right now. But we all can agree that there are some people who have that power, right? If you're driving and you come up to you come up to an intersection that is backed up with traffic because for whatever reason the traffic lights are out, but then there are some police officers standing in the middle of the intersection directing traffic, and that cop puts his hands up, tells you don't drive, stop, you're probably going to stop. And if the cop waves his hand and says drive through and go, you're probably going to go. Why? Because in that situation, you respect the situational authority that police officer holds. You probably don't want to go against that. Maybe not because you're afraid of the police, but because you don't want to deal with inconvenience that would come from crossing that police officer's authority right there in that moment. It's not even worth it, right? It's not worth what you would gain for doing it. So whose word do you respect enough that whatever they would tell you to do, you would go ahead and get it done? Holding that thought in your mind, we're going to move on to point number 3. The topic once again today is, do you respect yourself? That is a question. It's not a statement. Point number 3, since you have certain people in life, whether that be the judge in the courtroom, the police officer at the traffic intersection, or if they pull you over for a random traffic stop, your boss at work, the coach that you hired, a parent, a significant other, whoever it happens to be. There are these people whose words you respect. But when it is you telling you to do something, where's that respect? If your coach or the cop or your boss told you to do it, you don't even think twice. You don't push back. You don't ask any questions. You just get it done because you respect their word. But when you tell you to get something done, where is that same level of respect? Does it exist? Is it there? Has it ever been there? Why aren't you as urgent about your own personal deadlines with yourself as you would be with those of the judge in the courtroom or the boss at your job, or let's say a paying client came to you and said, listen, if we can get this, and this done by this point, yeah, I'll sign that $20,000 consulting contract. We can get this done. You would probably get it done. But if you told you to get something done today, there's no prize, there's no penalty, would you get it done? Do you have the same amount of respect for your word to you that you have to somebody else's word to you? And I'm pausing there for emphasis. I want you to really think about that. Think about the last time someone who has a position of authority relative to you told you to get something done and how you responded to that. Did you get it done? Did you take their word seriously? Did you do everything you could to make sure whatever they were telling you to do got done? I would guess, without even knowing you, I would guess probably yes that you did. But when's the last time you told you to get something done? That I need to do this, and this today. Did you actually get it done? Did you move with a sense of urgency? Did you do it as if? Did you attack that situation, whatever it happened to be, that task? Did you put the same energy into that task that you would have put into it had your boss been telling you to get something done? Had a judge or a cop been telling you to get something done? Where is that same level of respect when it comes to yourself? This is a question that I want you to hold in your mind. I'm giving you some questions to hold in your mind. You're going to challenge yourself. You're going to challenge yourself with these questions that I'm giving you here today. As we move on to point number 4, today's topic is, do you respect yourself? This is a question. Here's the problem. Everything we talked about so far, I'm going to tell you exactly what the source of all this is, okay? You are completely fine with defying your own orders, yet you're not fine with defying the orders of other people. This is the accountability gap that you have here. I did a whole episode on accountability gaps, probably, I would say maybe a year and a half ago, on a Work on Your Game show. If you're a game group member, you can access where that is, and there'll be other ways you can access it depending on how and where you're listening to this right now. You're okay with defying your own orders, but not those of other people. You're all right with disregarding yourself, but you wouldn't disregard that police officer who says, let me see your license, insurance, and registration when they pull you over. You just don't have the same level of self-accountability that other people have, but that other people are able to hold you to when they're holding you accountable. You can't hold you accountable the way somebody else can hold you accountable. But here's the problem with that. Because some people, listen, I've dealt with people. I've worked as a coach with people who say, listen, one of my biggest problems, Dre, is accountability. I'm not able to hold myself accountable and get myself to do things. So that's why I'm coming to you to be my coach. And you can help me be accountable. You can hold me accountable so I can get these certain things done. Listen, I completely understand that. The coaching industry exists for accountability. Anyone here who works as a coach or anyone here who has hired a coach, you can agree with me right here. I don't know if you thought this was a secret, but it's not a secret. People don't hire coaches because they lack information or they don't know what to do. People hire coaches just so somebody can have a foot in their ass to make sure it gets done. That's what a coach does. That's the purpose of a coach. Purpose of a coach is not to provide information that the person is lacking or some insight that the person doesn't have. Maybe you will do that at certain points, but that's not really what you're being hired for. You're being hired as a person who will hold that individual accountable for what they're supposed to get done. That's the only reason, not the only reason, but the main reason why a coach makes money. You can hold people accountable and actually help them get done what they're supposed to get done. You'll be a successful coach. That's the purpose of coaching. The problem with these traits of not having self-accountability, these accountability gaps between what someone else can hold you to and what you're able to hold yourself to, is that you can't get a whole lot done on your own. Without that coach or without that boss or that supervisor breathing down your neck, you don't get much done on your own volition, which in turn limits your personal power, because you can get things done when somebody else is telling you to do it, but you can't do it on your own volition, meaning you don't have that much personal power to move yourself to action. Somebody else has power to move you to action, but you can't move you to action as quickly or as efficiently or for as long as another person can. And that lowers your personal value because there's only so much you can do on your own. You're not, as we would say, a self-starter. Self-starter is a person who can take initiative, move themselves to initiative, move themselves to have urgency and get things done just because they told themselves to do it. But if you don't have that ability, you don't have that self-starter ability, you can't start a fire on your own, well, then you're less valuable than the person who can. You're less valuable than the person who has that ability. I mean, that's simple enough, right? And this lowers your value since you can't get much done on your own, and it makes a whole lot of your success dependent on the kick in the ass that somebody else would have to provide to you in order for you to get things done. So in other words, there's a certain amount you can get done when it's just you. But if you want to get past that threshold and get more done, then you need to recruit more people. We don't believe you. You need more people. You need another 2 people or 3 people or 10 people to help you actually get things done. And without those other 2 or 10 people around, there's only a certain amount that you can get done. And now we compare you to the person who can get the same amount done on their own, and you need 3 people to get done. Or which one would you rather invest in? The person who can get it done by themselves, or the person who needs 3 other people to get it done? I'd rather take the person who can get it done on their own. That's a much more efficient situation. So how many kicks in the ass are required for you to get done what you tell yourself you want to get done? Is it just you telling yourself? Is that enough? Or do you need somebody to breathe down your neck? You need somebody to cuss you out. You need somebody to take all the money out of your wallet and say you don't get it back unless you get these things done. How much accountability is required outside of yourself in order for you to move yourself to action? That's the question. The answer is telling you about your accountability gaps. Point number 5. So what's the fix to all this? The fix is, and again, today's topic is, do you respect yourself? That's the question. The fix is you got to stop letting yourself off the hook. In other words, when you tell yourself that you're going to get something done, you got to get it done. The same way that if your boss says, get this done and have it on my desk by 5 p.m., you're going to get it done because you respect the authority of your boss and you respect the consequences that can possibly arise if you don't do what the boss tells you to do. Same way that as a child, you would respect what your parent told you to do. And if you don't get it done, you knew there were certain consequences coming with it, consequences that you would like to avoid. Therefore, you did everything you need to do to get that thing done. The same way that a judge or a police officer tells you to do something, because again, you may not even want to do the thing they're telling you to do, but because you want to avoid the possible consequences that come on the other side of it, you're like, okay, I'm gonna just get this thing done because I don't want to deal with, I don't like what they're telling me to do, but I like even less the thing that will happen if I don't do what they're telling me to do. So let me go ahead and get that done. You got to have the same level of accountability to yourself, even when there's no penalty hanging over your head, even when there's no carrot and stick, no forcing you to action just because, all right, if I don't do this, then I'm gonna get 10 lashes with the stick. How about you just moving yourself to action just because you want to on your own volition? You got to stop letting yourself off the hook. You must demand of yourself what you want to get done. Make a demand of you to get done what you say you're going to get done, and stop accepting it when you come up short of meeting your own demands. Think about if you had an employee working for you, someone who's just working directly for you, and you tell them to get 1, 2, 3 done today, these 3 things done today, and they just don't get it done. Now, maybe at first you can say, okay, you're learning. Maybe the second time you can say, okay, maybe my instructions weren't clear. Maybe the third time you can say, maybe I just put too much on your plate. You couldn't get it all done. Eventually, you're going to come to a point where you say, you know what? Maybe this individual is the wrong person for the job. Maybe I need to hire somebody else. This person is just coming up short. Especially if they're doing something that you have done on your own before they came around. So you know it can get done. They're just not getting it done. At some point, you got to make a demand of that person. Like, listen, either you figure this out and get this done the way it's supposed to, or I'm going to move on and have to find somebody else to take your spot. You must make the same demands of yourself that a boss would make of you, that your coach would make of you, that your parents would make of you, asking you to do things that you think are not possible for you to get done. But because you know what would happen if you don't get them done, you move the heavens and the earth to get it done. And then guess what? You get it done. Stop accepting the fact that you have come up short of your own personal demands. If you can start doing that, your level of discipline would rise so high. You would be able to get so much done on your own. You'll be such a self-starter. You'll be that fire starter who can start a fire on your own. Just your presence alone starts the fire and gets everybody else lit up, gets everybody else moving with some urgency, gets everybody else moving at a certain pace. You got to make demands of yourself to do that, though. You're not going to do it just because you thought about it or just because you got hyped up by something that you heard from somebody else like me. You got to move yourself to do that. And you got to make demands. I demand myself to do these things. And then you got to actually hold yourself accountable to getting them done. Push yourself harder than anything or anyone else can push you or would push you. And at that point, nobody else can push you. If you push yourself harder than anybody else can push you, then nobody else will ever even see the need to push you. And even if somebody tried to push you, you wouldn't even feel it. Because you push yourself harder than they could ever push you. They can't push and they won't need to. This is the ultimate power that you can have in life. That's the reason why all this matters. The ultimate power that any one of us can have is that we push ourselves to action. We can demand more of ourselves than anyone else or anything else could ever demand of us. When you can get yourself to that point, you'll be able to get more done than anybody else can get done. You'll be actually reaching for and realizing your personal potential when you can start moving yourself to action more than anyone else or anything else can force you to action. How would that feel if you could do that? How would it feel if you took all those things on your mental to-do list that you've been thinking about doing, that you know you need to do, but you just haven't gotten around to doing yet? How would it feel if you were actually getting those things done and there was nobody who was having to force you to do it? You were just making yourself do it. How much power do you feel like you would have at that point? Probably a lot, right? Well, what's stopping you from doing it? Exactly, nothing. Let's recap today's topic, which is, do you respect yourself? This is the question. Came up with this subject thinking about urgency. Why it's so hard for people to have urgency, why it's so hard to maintain it, why it's very rare that we create it in our own lives. And it boiled down to one core reason, that we do not respect ourselves enough to be urgent with ourselves. There's levels to this shit, so we're breaking it down, starting at the surface and going deep. Number one, urgency is easy when urgent things are taking place. The pressure's on us, the situation provides urgency to us, and we're baking in the energy of the situation. We don't need to create urgency, it's already there for us. Your hand is forced, your time is short, and things usually happen when your hand is forced and your time is short. We don't really need to talk about those situations because the situation is giving it to you on its own. The question is, how can you be urgent even when there's no emergency? Here's the answer. Number two, stop letting yourself off the hook. If a judge drags you into court and said, if you don't get that book written in the next 3 weeks, you're going to jail for a year. Or if your boss said, look, if your boss said you're fired if you don't get that book done in 3 weeks, or the coach said you hired me to help you get your book done, you got 3 weeks, don't call me or text me until that book is done. For no other reason than the fact that you respect the word of these people who told you to do it, you would get it done. And we all have people in our lives who either situationally or just overall because of our relationship will do whatever they tell us to do. Why? Because the level of respect that we have for them or the relationship. However, point number three, when it's you telling you to do something, where's that same level of respect? Why can't you respect yourself the way you respect your coach or your boss or that police officer or the judge or your significant other? Why can't you respect yourself at the same level? Why not? Why aren't you as urgent about your own deadlines as you are with those of somebody else? And point number four, reason why is you're okay with defying your own orders and not those of others because you don't have the same level of respect for yourself. You're all right with disregarding yourself, but you wouldn't disregard anybody else. You do not have self-accountability. This is an accountability gap between where somebody else can hold you and where you can hold you. All right, you should be holding yourself more accountable than anybody else will ever hold you. The problem with these traits of lack of accountability, this accountability gap, is that you don't get much done on your own, which limits your personal power. It lowers your value because you can't get much done by yourself, and there are people out there who can. And it makes much of your success dependent on other people. And the more people that your success is dependent on, the less likely that success will happen because you can't control other people. They can't always be available for you. They got to do things for themselves. So if you need 10 people for you to be successful, what if one of those 10 is not available? All right, now you're only capable of getting to, let's say, 90% of your success theoretically. All right, you don't want your success dependent on having a whole bunch of other people or even one other person involved in you doing what you need to do for yourself. The more you can get things done on your own, the more valuable you become to other people. And point number five, here's the fix. You got to stop letting yourself off the hook. Make demands of yourself and do not accept coming up short of those demands. Push yourself harder than anyone or anything else can push you. Then nothing else can push you and nothing else will even see the need to push you, because this is the ultimate power. When you can get things done on your own, you don't need a push. You don't need anyone riding your back. You don't need anyone breathing down your neck. You just get things done. What's stopping you from doing that? Only one thing is stopping you. The amount of respect that you have for the person in the mirror. Work on your game. Dre all day.